So you might be thinking, what is necessary for compliance around post-secondary transition assessments? Transition assessments must be conducted beginning at age 14. They must be completed prior to the development of the post-secondary transition IEP, and assessment results should be summarized in a PLAFIP, or evidence of the current transition assessments must be in the student's file. Here is a screenshot of the transition assessment section of the USBE Model Post-Secondary Transition Plan form. The transition assessment results should be written in the PLAFIP, and the checkbox should be marked accordingly on the post-secondary transition plan. Remember, you can also mark the other checkboxes that indicate that the transition assessments are included in the student's file without writing a PLAFIP. On this slide, you see a link and a QR code to the USBE Model Post-Secondary Transition Plan form. Keep in mind that your IEP platform may look slightly different, but will include the same components to the plan for compliance. There are many types of transition assessments to choose from, as they are not a one-size-fits-all. So it's important that we choose appropriate transition assessments for the students that we work with to help determine their strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. Most transition assessments fall under these 4 domains. Career interest surveys, of which there are many, including online interest inventories. There are some assessments that help determine a student's readiness for college or other post-secondary training. We often overlook the importance of using self-determination and self-advocacy assessments, but these are very important to help identify skills a student may need to develop success in post-high settings. And lastly, there are many assessments available for determining a student's skill level and needs in the areas of independent living and adult living. This includes not only our students with significant support needs. Transition assessments are generally informal assessments as an ongoing process of data collection regarding transition-related information about a student. These may include the types of assessments on this list. They may include information from parents, family members, and other IEP team members as well. The link and the QR code on this slide will take you to our Padlet with a variety of transition assessments. Students with more complex support needs may need different transition assessments to effectively identify their strengths, preferences, interests, and needs, as traditional transition assessments may not be appropriate for a student with extensive support needs. Here are a few simple and free assessments for students with complex needs. You'll find these assessments on the Transition Assessment Padlet. Most of these assessments will require parent or family participation to gather accurate and rich data on a student's SPINs. You might be wondering, how do I know what transition assessments to use? We suggest that you become familiar with the different types of transition assessments by referring to our USBE Transition Assessment Padlet or your LEA's Transition Assessment Toolkit if they have one. It's important to know your student to determine which assessments will be most helpful in determining their transition needs. We'll be providing guiding questions in the next slide to help you choose appropriate assessments for your students. And lastly, it's always a good idea to use assessments from multiple domain areas to ensure that we are addressing all of a student's strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. These guiding questions can be a good starting point to help you and the IEP team determine what transition assessments to use to gather information on a student's SPINs. We always want to start with the student's strengths and interests and involve the student in the process of self-discovery. Many times, students do not know their own strengths and interests, so it's important that we use a variety of transition assessments to help the student learn about their strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. It's also important that we, along with the student, learn about their transition service needs through assessments and target self-determination and self-advocacy skills as well as adult living skills. Often, students don't know what they want to do in the future because they don't know what's available in their communities in terms of employment and post-secondary education and training options. Students should be introduced to opportunities that align with their strengths, preferences, and interests. Let's hear from Jason on how he is learning more about how he can participate in choosing post-secondary transition assessments.